Caleb Williams' past doubts about the Chicago Bears are public. There's no going back, but Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles can't allow this to linger and be a distraction that hurts the team in the future.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on the show today, I want to look at the future implications of everything that came out late last week about Caleb Williams and his doubts about the Bears, and for a time they're not wanting to go to the Bears and having real concerns about the Bears. And now, a year later, everything seems to be fine, but this all lingers over everything. And it feels like every up and down moving forward goes through the lens of, well, Caleb didn't want to be here in the first place, so how does that shape everything? And I just wonder if there's a way for this to go away and for this to blow over, or does it linger? Or at what point do we kind of get to the point where it's like, all right, well, he's been here long enough, or he's done X, Y, or Z to make it so that it's not an issue or a concern or something that even just sits in the back of your mind as a doubt there. And then also what role his dad, Carl Williams, will play, given how much a role he played in the pre-draft process. So I kind of want to look future forward here on the Caleb Williams story and situation here, because this feels like the kind of thing that is going to keep popping up every time there's ever a reason to insert it here. People will point to this, after not just every Bears loss, right? But like anytime anything goes wrong, but especially after a loss, right? And I can feel this wearing down and weighing on the fan base over time. I can see it playing out like where it's like, if the Bears lose week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings, first of all we're going to hear in the lead up to that game is Caleb Williams wanted to be a Minnesota Viking. Caleb Williams wanted to be a Minnesota Viking, and that's going to be a big part of the storyline here, even though there was never a path for Caleb Williams to want to be a Minnesota Viking, and Caleb's desire for Minnesota was more about the head coach than anything else. They wanted to work for an offensive mind like Kevin O'Connell, and the Bears have now given Caleb Williams his version of that, or what they think can be his version of that, an offensive-minded coach that he is excited to play for and really fired up about, right? So it would be one thing if all of this stuff had come out and Matt Eberflus was still the head coach, or certainly if heaven forbid Shane Waldron was still the offensive coordinator, and then you go into that Minnesota game saying, hey, clearly Caleb Williams would rather be playing for the other coach. But Ben Johnson, in theory, his presence should quiet that. It should. I don't know that it will, but it should. But it just feels to me like after every Bears loss, it's like, oh, is Caleb Williams going to want to leave now? That's going to be not the narrative from the fan base, but just the outside noise of, oh man, if the Bears go on a 2-game losing streak, Caleb didn't want to be a Chicago Bear anyway, so is he going to request a trade now, right? Or if if players get hurt or whatever happens around him, anytime there's some adversity there, he throws an interception or whatever it's going to be, we're going to keep hearing about it over and over and over. And so I'm left wondering, first of all, will this go away? Will we be able to just kind of collectively drop it and focus on the football and the games this season? Or is this going to be the national media talking point, at least for a while, right? Pre-game shows and halftime shows, broadcasts of games and national radio shows, right? I don't think we're going to get a lot of this, certainly from Bears fans, but also even in local media. I don't know that, I guess I can't speak for, what the Chicago radio stations are going to do, but I don't think this is necessarily something that we at the local level are going to be applying to every minute detail and story, but it's just going to be like the fuel and the ammunition for other people to drum up story and controversy and interest around the Chicago Bears. Because it's not just the he didn't want to be a Bear thing, but I mean, it's sort of the whole series of details from the story, right? It's about his dad being involved in the process and trying to circumvent how things are normally done. And it's about how, and he said that the Bears weren't watching film with him. They were kind of just leaving him on his own to be able to watch film and not really instructing him on what to do. And that's another one of these storyline type issues that I think has also been hijacked and spun out of control, because the narrative is that what people are saying is that Caleb Williams was upset because no one taught him how to watch film. And that's not what the story said. And that's not what Caleb Williams has said. And that's not what the reporting has been. But people are taking it as saying no one taught him how to watch film. Well, they shouldn't need to teach him to watch film. He's a college quarterback and a Heisman Trophy winner. What do you mean the Bears didn't teach him how to watch film? He knows how to watch. He should know how to watch film. And that's not what he said. If you go into the ESPN story about this, where it all came out from Seth Wickersham, the exact quoting in here was that at times Williams said he would watch film alone with no instruction or guidance from the coaches. And then there's a quote, "No one tells me what to watch," Caleb Williams told his dad. "I just turn it on." And that's not Caleb Williams saying, "I don't know how to watch film." It's Caleb Williams saying, "Hey, my coaches, what do they want me to focus on?" Like, yes, he knows how to watch film and know when a throw is good or bad and what his footwork is, right? But you would think that any competent coaching staff would go in and have specific things for him to focus on or pay attention to, or specific game plan thing. You know, I mean, any kind of direction of like, yeah, he can tell the difference between what was good and what was bad and know what he's got to improve and get better on. But you would think a big part of coaching is like being a part of that process with him and talking about it with him and bouncing ideas back and forth and being able to sort of check and correct and make sure that he is seeing everything that he's supposed to be seeing and not missing anything, and not just saying, "Hey, go watch this and figure it out," but like, you know, "Hey, kid, what'd you do wrong here?" Okay. And just kind of confirm and work through that. That's part of the learning and growing process, is like articulating it and thinking it out and being able to talk about it in different contexts and understanding there with coaches. And that wasn't happening for Caleb Williams. So it's not as though, like, I've seen some really poor taste criticism of like, this diva doesn't know how to watch film. It's like, yes, he knows football and how to watch. He knows how to watch film, but what Caleb wants to do is squeeze the absolute most out of every second of film watching he's doing, and having instruction and direction from your coaches about, hey, focus on this, or don't worry as much about that, or, you know, X, Y, or Z, whatever it's going to be, some sort of direction or energy to say, yes, here's how we think you can get the most better, instead of just, here's your film, take a look at it, and then come to practice tomorrow. Like, that guidance, it's not that he needed the guidance because he had no idea what he was doing. It was like, no, please guide me because I want to be better. Help me get better. I want your help to be the best quarterback that I can be. And they weren't providing that help. That's why we've heard Caleb Williams say he wants to be coached harder. He wants to be pushed. He wants more of that, because they just weren't doing that under the previous coaching staff. So I hope that we can move on from the, like, he doesn't know how to watch film thing, because that's really just stupid and misinformation and not accurately what was portrayed in the story. The doubts about the Bears are the part that I think could linger more and may linger more. And I just wonder what it would take. What has to happen for that to be settled and say, nope, he's good. He doesn't want to leave. He's here. Like, what has to happen for us to all collectively, and not just the fan base, but like media and national narratives, accept that all this is in the past and that he's here and happy now? I want to take a look at some of the different possibilities on the timeline there next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Skylight Calendar. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites, because the Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, etc., and make it really easy to track appointments and practices and dinners and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. Imagine being able to see your whole week clearly on a 15-inch HD screen to help you stay focused and less overwhelmed, and just eliminate that "I didn't know" excuse from your family's routine, especially with Father's Day coming up right around the corner. It's going to be a great way to keep everyone organized. It can be a great gift. It's beautiful, it's slick, and it works really, really well. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. That's skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. SKYLIGHTCAL. Skylightcal.com/NFL. So this Caleb Williams storyline and doubts about the Bears can't literally last forever, right? Like, we're not going to go the rest of Caleb Williams' career wondering if he's still doubting whether he wants to be a Chicago Bear, right? Like, at some point, this ends and goes away because we're all collectively convinced that he's here and he wants to be here and he's happy to be here and no longer has those same doubts about the Bears. I believe that generally to be true now. I mean, again, any player can change how they feel about a team, but like one of the big takeaways right away we talked about on Friday's podcast, right, was that the fact that he had these doubts and then was still so invested in the Bears this season is a really, really good sign that this shouldn't be a real problem for Caleb Williams behind the scenes. It's a question for me of like, will other people keep trying to make it a story when it doesn't seem to be a story? Caleb has done nothing since the NFL draft that suggests he's not all in on being a member of the Chicago Bears, but it's going to still linger as something that other people, not Caleb, not the Bears, talk about throughout this process until some point when it'll be enough time has passed and he's been here long enough and done enough here to bury that and say, well, clearly he can't be that upset about being a Chicago Bear because X, Y, or Z. And that's what I want to pin down a little bit here. Is like, what is the minimum amount of success the Bears have to have for everyone to collectively realize he does want to be here, right? Of course, if the Bears win a Super Bowl this year, which they're not, but of course, if the Bears won the Super Bowl this year, no one's going to go after that Super Bowl and go, does Caleb Williams still want to be a Bear? He didn't really want to be there before the draft. Like, no freaking duh. Like, it's like, there's obviously some really obvious threshold that's like, if he wins the Super Bowl with the Bears, there's not going to be a narrative of does he want to leave because he won the Super. So, but that's kind of the extreme, right? So then what if we work our way backwards? Okay, like, if the Bears make the playoffs this year, does that settle it? He's like, okay, that is then Caleb Williams having success on a Bears team and feeling like I can win here because I literally am winning here. Like, I feel like there's a lot of similarities here in this narrative building to what we see in the NBA, and specifically like right now with Giannis Antetokounmpo in the Bucks. I know a lot of Bulls fans want him to come to Chicago potentially. I don't think that's going to happen, kind of like Caleb and the Vikings. But like, everyone's trying to read in and it's like, does he want to leave or does he want to stay? And he's always wanted to stay and people never are really sure. And always these narratives kind of keep popping up about him wanting to leave. And I know Milwaukee Bucks fans that I know are all really tired of that narrative being there the whole time. And I just wonder with Caleb, like, what will it take? And okay, you make the playoffs this year, but then if you have a bad 2026 for some reason, whatever reason, then do they pop back up? Well, yeah, they made the playoffs last year, but now Caleb's fears are coming true, so maybe he would want to leave. Like, what is the minimum amount of success that he has to have? Or is it about success? Or like hypothetically, however the next couple of years go, if Caleb Williams signs a contract extension with the Chicago Bears at the end of his rookie contract, right? Let's forget about the on and off the on-field success, whether they make the playoffs or however many games they win. Like, separate from that, if we get 3 years down the line and then Caleb Williams signs a massive long-term contract with the Chicago Bears, at that point, no one can question that he wants to be here because he had a choice and chose to stay here, right? Part of the thinking here is like, well, he didn't have a choice to be drafted by the team. He tried to, but he didn't really have a choice to be drafted by the team. So he's kind of stuck here for now, whether he wanted to be or not. But if he were to sign a contract extension in a few years, then it would be him individually choosing to want to be here in the long term instead of potentially going somewhere else. Like, is that Is that the soonest that we'll know Caleb Williams wants to stay long term? Like, is that the soonest that this will fully go away? Does making the playoffs this year mean that everyone will drop this and no one will wonder if Caleb Williams wants to leave? Or because I don't feel like one playoff appearance is necessarily enough for people to not still try and poke holes in those doubts. The Bears made the playoffs for 1 year with Mitch Trubisky, right? Like, one playoff season might not be enough. And I worry that if you miss the playoffs this year, the Bears go 9-8 and miss the playoffs, are these narratives going to pop up again where people say, well, maybe this offseason should Caleb Williams request a trade because still can't make the playoffs with the Bears and he didn't want to be there in the first place? Like, it just feels to me like it's not going to be loud for the next 3 years straight, but anytime there falls a certain amount of short of success, it's going to be in the background. Whispers, murmurs, speculation, unfounded, but a narrative nonetheless. And that's what I'm concerned about. And I don't feel like there's a great way for the Bears to be able to get out ahead of this other than like Caleb Williams coming out and saying, yes, all those things are true. I mean, he was quoted directly. There's no doubt. But he's like, but I'm very happy to be a Chicago Bear. I want to be here. And then just just come out and put it to rest and say, hey, I'm here. I'm under contract here. I want to be here. I want to make the absolute most out of this year and future years with Ben Johnson and the Bears. And I want to win and et cetera, et cetera. And as long as the Bears are successful and winning and trending in the right direction, there's going to be ups and downs. But as long as they're a continually contending team, I don't see any reason why Caleb Williams would have any doubts and ever like want to leave. If they start losing a bunch of games, then yeah, no crap. Caleb Williams is going to leave. Duh. Like, nobody wants to be on a losing team for a super long time and a bunch of extended periods. That, of course, like a lot of players don't want to stick around on losing teams. So that's kind of where it's like, if you just win, this isn't a problem. And if you're losing, then we have bigger problems, I think, right? Like if the Bears are losing enough for these Caleb Williams doubt concerns to be there, then maybe that means Caleb Williams hasn't been good enough in that process either, right? They're sort of tied together here, that if Caleb Williams is as great as we think he can be, then that will eliminate any of these sort of lingering doubt question marks. And if Caleb Williams isn't very good, then these will, or if the Bears aren't very good with Caleb Williams, then these things will linger, but also he will be part of that reason that they aren't as good. And so then it kind of takes care of itself in either direction there. So I don't think this is going to be the end of the world. I don't think this is going to be, the most annoying thing that keeps causing problems along the way. I think it's going to be just like we're tired of it as this nagging narrative that people won't drop. To me, it's like, you remember when Jay Cutler got hurt in the NFC Championship game in 2010, and he was on the sidelines, and then for like a couple of years after that, Packers fans and everybody thought, oh, Jay Cutler is soft and he wasn't actually hurt and he just didn't want to go back in the game, whatever. And there was this narrative that like, for some reason, like he wasn't injured or like it was Jay Cutler's fault that he got hurt in that game. Like, and it was just stupid for like 2 or 3 years of like, no, you're just wrong and this isn't a real thing and everyone just keeps talking about it, but it's not real. Like, that's kind of how I feel like this Caleb thing is going to go away. But the Cutler thing eventually did go away after a couple seasons, and I think this Caleb Williams thing will too. That is, unless his dad, Carl Williams, pops back up and is a part of this in the future, right? Could there be new stuff, right? I think everything we know up to this point is in the past, and that's why it's not a big deal. But if new stuff happens, that's when there could be more of a big deal. So I want to explore the role of Caleb Williams' dad, Carl Williams, in all of this and what it might mean for the Bears' short and long-term future. Next on Locked On Bears. None of us really know Caleb Williams' dad, Carl Williams, that well. He's kind of a enigmatic figure in all of this. And I'm not going to be one to sit here and pretend and tell you like, oh, here's what he's going to do, or here's what he's not going to do, or here's what he is. But I think Carl Williams in this Caleb Williams dynamic is a little bit of a Rorschach test, where because we don't know much about him and don't hear a lot from him, you can then use his presence to reinforce whatever narrative you want to reinforce. So, if you want to stir up drama around Caleb Williams, you can keep throwing his dad's name in there and paint his dad as this, distraction, disruptor person who is going to cause problems for the Bears. And you can also look around and see that we haven't heard anything from Caleb Williams' dad before this story. Like in the last 12 months, Caleb Williams' dad popped up, in the pre-draft process, right? Before the Bears had ever drafted Caleb Williams, we'd heard from his dad, and he was, he's got a Twitter account that we think is his dad, or someone pretending to be his dad at least. And his dad was present at the pro day and stuff. Like his dad was visible and engaged in the pre-draft process. But from the moment Caleb Williams got drafted, his dad wasn't really a character in the Bears season narrative storyline. Again, like the Twitter account that may or may not actually belong to him. I don't know that we know that for sure. Yeah, he was tweeting stuff, but like his dad was never a distraction. Like from the moment Caleb Williams joined the Chicago Bears, Carl Williams has never been a distraction. And that to me is the most peace of mind I get in all of this. Like if you have concerns about, well, because I think the hypothetical narrative here is like, okay, like if the Bears are bad again this year, is Carl Williams going to speak up and say, my son should be playing for some other team, right? That was the thing in the ESPN story. There's a quote from Carl Williams. He said, quote, "I don't want my son playing for the Bears," Williams told several agents in 2024. And Carl Williams also said, the rookie salary cap is unconstitutional. The CBA is the worst piece of crap I've ever read. Like Carl Williams was very opinionated about Caleb and the pre-draft process and how things should go for his son. And so I can understand why someone might be worried that Carl Williams could continue to be opinionated in the future. And I do think Carl Williams will be opinionated. He's a human being. He's going to have opinions, and it's his son, and he wants what's best for his son. Like in all of this, I don't think Carl Williams was wrong about any of it. Like, and I don't think anyone should be disparaging what Carl Williams did, tried to do, and said. Like throughout that whole process, like Carl was just like advocating for what he thought was best for his son. And generally, I think he, like personal opinion wise, I think he generally had the right ideas. Like the things he wanted for his son seemed like, yes, if he could have done those things, it may have been better for his son. And I'll never blame a father for wanting what's best for their son. And also, like, I think Carl was right about what he should have wanted. Like what he wanted was the correct things to want. He just wasn't able to get what he wanted. And so I understand the fear that a bad season this year, and now is Carl Williams going to again be telling people, oh, I don't want my son playing for the Chicago Bears anymore. They're ruining him. Get him out of there. Maybe he would privately, but we didn't hear publicly from Carl Williams from the moment Caleb Williams was drafted. And that's despite him going into a team that he didn't want his son playing for an offensive coordinator he didn't want his son playing for, and then watching his son get sacked more than any quarterback in the NFL, and watching his son lose on a Hail Mary that wasn't his son's fault, and watching his son lose on a blocked field goal that wasn't his son's fault, and watching his son lose at the end of a game where his head coach didn't call timeout that wasn't his son's fault, right? And while getting slammed over and over again, and then firing the offensive coordinator, and then going on the 10-game losing streak. Like, if there was ever going to be a time where Carl Williams was going to hit his limits and blow up and speak out about the treatment his son was receiving in Chicago, wouldn't it have been this year? Like, in theory, it can't get worse for Caleb Williams than what happened this year. I mean, he's never say never, but like it shouldn't. It almost certainly won't ever get worse than it was this year. It may never be great. Like, we'll see how great the team and whatever, but like, it's hard to envision three offensive coordinators, or I guess three coach play caller in the first 3 years, like, or the first 2 years, and 10-game losing streak. Like, that stuff's probably not going to all happen in that exact same way for Caleb Williams ever again. Like, it's not going to be that bad. So what then in the future could prompt Carl Williams to cause trouble if he didn't when it was this bad? Like, that's the thing I'm kind of left at. Like, yes, you never know. People can be unpredictable and do different things, but like, this doesn't feel to me like it's going to be, like LeVar Ball and the Ball family, Lonzo and LiAngelo and that group, right? Where this is a Like with LeVar Ball was the athlete dad who was going on First Take and Sports Center and ESPN and constantly making the story about him instead of his sons, if we're being honest there with LeVar Ball. Like, and being a distraction, or even like, to talk about Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders. Like Deion's a coach, so it's a little bit different, right? But we know what it looks like when an athlete's dad is, I was going to say a problem, but that's too strong. When an athlete's dad is a distraction, or an athlete's dad is a noise. I can't quite get the right word there, but we know what it's like, right? When the athlete's dad is more than you would like from the fan base perspective. And Carl may be that behind the scenes, but he hasn't been that out front. And I would bet, and if anything, like, remember how there was all that Tyson Bagent's dad stuff, right? Like, there's other quarterback dads that also have strong opinions, and the Bears navigated all of that. Like Tyson Bagent's dad is probably a bigger name than Carl Williams at this point, which is funny. And like, I think it's going to be okay. I don't think Carl Williams is going to just be a big problem behind the scenes, because at the end of the day, Caleb Williams is a grown man, right? He is a confident adult who carries himself very strongly and maturely and has a whole personal and professional life outside of his family, right? He is not, I don't know Carl and Caleb's relationship specifically, but Caleb Williams has business ventures and it does investing and does the fashion stuff. Like, Caleb Williams is a very structured, well-rounded person. It's not like dad runs Caleb Williams' whole life, right? This is not that, at least as far as we can tell. And so, and I heard an interview with Seth Wickersham about his reporting, and it's like, even Seth said, like, no, Carl has a lot of opinions, but Caleb makes his own decisions. Like, at the end of the day, it was Caleb who said, I'm going to play for the Bears and not make this worse. Like, Caleb has, I don't know that we know the specific, but like, Caleb can disagree with his dad and feel differently than his dad. It's not like what Carl Williams says goes, right? Caleb has his own opinion and will do his own course of action and will value his dad's opinion and input, certainly. But it's not just going to be like those guys are lockstep and do absolutely everything Carl wants is what Caleb does. Like, these are two separate human beings. So I just don't think the Carl Williams stuff should be a problem or will be a problem. And I would bet we don't really hear much from Carl Williams publicly. Dare I say ever again, at least not from a Chicago Bears standpoint, right? Like, I think everything's fine. I think everything is going to be outside, national media type of questions about Caleb's commitment to Chicago, and eventually it'll go away. Maybe not as soon as we would like, and we'll get annoyed by it along the way, but if Caleb Williams is good and Ben Johnson is good, everything will be fine. And if Caleb Williams isn't good and Ben Johnson isn't good, then you have a lot bigger problems than just, does Caleb want to be here, because your whole franchise is a mess at that point. So I think we're fine. Everything's just tied to how well this team does, and everything's always just tied to how well this team does, because if the team doesn't do well, everyone's going to get fired anyway, and life goes on. So I think we can take a deep breath and say, okay, this was a big story. Good to have this information out there from behind the scenes. Like, it makes us more informed on what was going on, but life goes on, and you got playoffs to push for this season. And that's what I want to talk about on tomorrow's Locked On Bears podcast. What's it going to take for the Chicago Bears to make the playoffs in 2025? Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, so that way you're keeping up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. And if you're looking for a second listen, you can always find more football talk on the Locked On NFL podcast, Locked On NFL Draft, Locked On NFL Scouting, or we've got Locked On podcasts for all of your favorite NBA, NHL, and MLB teams as well. So go make another Locked On podcast your second listen today. Come on back tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Bears and another opportunity to bear down.